Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Getting Real with Paula. Tonight, we are speaking to Svens Telemaque, who will share how he turned his journey of crime and violence into a mission to positively impact other youths. So, good evening, Svens, and we're glad to have you here. Could you tell us a little about who you are, what you do, and what brought you to your mission as well as entrepreneurship?
Thank you so much for having me, Paula. It's really a pleasure. To answer your question, I'm an author, speaker, spoken word artist, and I would say what got me to get on the right track and to have the mission that I have now is when I started to realize the impact that I had on my community and realizing that that didn't define who I really was.
Okay. And when you're talking about that, let's jump into it. For those who do not know your story, can you describe what your childhood was like?
I was born in Montreal. My parents divorced when I was a baby. Unfortunately, my mom relocated to an area that was ideal for my failure. So growing up in Miami, when I would step outside, there would be a crack house across the street. A crack house is two doors down. So I always found myself idolizing people in the neighborhood that were making something out of nothing. So it's as if when I would look out my window, I could either see crack addicts and prostitutes, people working hard doing the 9 to 5, or I could see people affiliated in a gang making money off illegal activity. And I had to choose between who I wanted to be. And I definitely didn't want to look like the person doing the 9 to 5 with nothing to show. I definitely didn't want to be a crack addict. And I told myself, wait, they look like they're doing something. They look like they're dominating the situation. And I felt like that was the most dominant figure that I could find. And I tried to hide behind that shadow.
And when you're talking behind their shadow, we're talking who exactly? Are you talking about the gang members?
Gang members, but principally I would say drug dealers.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I idolized that since I was like 13, 14.
Okay. And what were some of the things going on around you in your teens that landed you on the wrong side of the justice system?
So first and foremost, I would say that my story stems from a low self-esteem, trying to find my self-worth and self-value in things that were menial, right? Because going to school, like people would talk to you about your clothes, they would talk to you about your shoes. And I thought that clothes and shoes and these things would kind of like help people determine how to value you. And that was my first issue. So I started to find myself involved in credit card fraud because I was trying to fill that gap with things. After trying to fill that gap with things, I realized that if I wanted people to respect me more, if I wanted to be revered, then you know what? Let me go ahead and just take a whole identity. So I found myself trying to be this drug dealer. I got involved, and with time, I actually became what I was trying to emulate.
And while all of this was happening, where was your mom?
My mom was present, but my mom was always working. My mom was actually into illegal activity herself. She was running like a how would we call that? Come on, decide gambling ring. Basically, she had like a gambling ring that was part of the Haitian community going on in Little Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
She was connected to basically all of the main Haitian businesses in Little Haiti.
Okay.
So
and the gambling you're referring to, is it what we call in the community, Asian community, bolet?
Exactement.
Okay, okay. So for those who don't know what that is, it's just a bit like a roulette, but for lower amount of money than you would find in the casino, but about the same type of behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, I understand. And you mentioned that there were numerous arrests, that at least I could read also on your website that there were funerals, so you lost people, and some others were also deported.
Mm-hmm.
What was the turning point for you?
Well, to be quite honest, when you're running the street, you're prepared to lose friends. You're prepared to go to jail. You're prepared to get shot at or people try to hurt you. But what I wasn't prepared for was seeing. I remember one day I was selling drugs and this woman approached me. She wanted to get high, and she had no money. She approaches me with her 8-year-old son, and I'm seeing her son cry, and she comes with this plastic bag, and she's not offering me sex or sexual favors. She's like basically taking her son's PlayStation 2 and trying to give it to me to get high. And watching that little boy, I couldn't see myself take the PlayStation, Paula. You get what I mean? And at the same time, like seeing him cry like that just made me realize this is the impact that I have on my community. I would have never been prepared for that. I've had plenty of people like offer me TVs, jewelry, car radio, like all type of weird stuff, you know, guns, whatever, to get high. But to have someone come with their son and try to give you their PlayStation, that hit me in a very soft place, because as gangster as I thought I was, as much money that I had in my pocket, the money in my pocket had no more value when you're looking at an 8-year-old boy crying, looking at you like you're a monster. And you see, like, you can't, as much as I would listen to gangster rap music and kind of live my life in that way, there was nothing that could have prepared me for that moment.
What I'm hearing is that while I was impersonating a behavior, there were still those emotional ties to people. There was still that sense of what family was supposed to be about. And then you found yourself in a situation where you see a mom and her child, which in a way could be your mom and yourself, and taking something that the child considered precious, whatever value it had, and seeing the sorrow. So for a child who was looking for approval, you realize, what am I doing to this other child?
Exactly. And all my life, all I wanted was a Nintendo 64. All I wanted was a Sega Genesis, you know, and my mom didn't really prioritize those things. So I always would like leave my little sister home by herself, go to the corner store, go to a friend's house just to play video games because I could never get one, right? And by the time that I had the money to get one, I didn't want anything to do with them. So it hit me in a real soft space.
It's like seeing myself and everything that I've never was able to get.
Exactly.
And other people might have reacted differently, but for you, that was a point, a turning point. If I was to ask, was there something or someone specific that opened possibilities for you, but outside of the criminal system?
Outside of the criminal system, there was a comedian by the name of Larry Dog. And Larry Dog is a comedian that has actually been on Comic View. I don't know if you're familiar with Comic View, that used to be on BET. And he used to promote his shows. He had an open mic. And because of his open mic, I used to perform rap. And we kind of like got to know each other a bit better. And he kind of pulled me under his wing. And because of him, he got me to see like the other side of, the street, just show business and how you could make money doing what you really love if you push yourself.
So you started with rap, and if I understand well, you went from rap into spoken word.
Exactly.
And then writing.
Exactly. Well, I would say it's all poetry at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
It's all poetry. So I was always writing poetry since I was like 12 years old, writing raps. And at one point, I used to have a lot of stage fright when I would rap like in clubs and stuff like that, when I would get gigs with Larry Dog. So because of the stage fright, I was like, you know what, let me try spoken word. Because spoken word, you have to be so much more present, I find. So I was like, if I could do that on that level, it'll help my rap performance so much better. And I just fell in love with the art craft.
Okay. And from there, how did you end up in community services?
So I left Miami in 2007, and I changed my life in Miami. I tried different things that didn't work out. My environment was still ideal for my failure because I got robbed and almost killed. So when I moved here in Montreal, got a job, went to school, and while I was going to school at Concordia University, I saw a group of women. It was a group of women talking about literacy and how they were using hip hop and, helping youth that were, at risk. And when I saw that, it just really touched me because I was like, okay, you guys are working with youth that were like me. So there was someone that I was trying to reach out to, but she wasn't available. There were just too much people around her, so I could not ask her a question. And she was like really deep into the community service in the English area of Montreal. Her name is Lynn Worrell. And she had a program called Word, Writing Our Rhymes Down. So funny enough, like maybe like a week later, I was at a cafe called Shakers on Sherbrooke in Montreal. And I was at this spoken word show I'm performing. And guess who I see? I see Lynn. So I talked to Lynn and I tell her about like my fascination with what she's doing. And she's like, but what about you? Who are you? Like, tell me your story. So I tell her my story and she's like, you should have your own program. And I'm looking at her like, me? I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So she's like, I don't know what to tell you, but take the time to just think about your past and think about like the message that you would like to use to help other youth. And I had a blank page in my mind, but when I went to work, I remember thinking about a conversation that I had with someone in a restaurant in the Conch House in Miami, right? So I'm in the Conch House one day with Larry Dog, but while I'm, I think he was getting an order or he was doing something else. While I was just sitting down on the phone making some calls, this older male approaches me and he tells me a slow 50 cent beats a fast dollar. And I'm like, first thing that's coming to my mind is like, okay, why are you talking to me? Like, why are you telling me this? But not in a rude way, but I just was like, he just out of the blue, a slow 50 cent beats a fast dollar. And he tells me, let me explain it to you. And he tells me, you have two types of people. You have people that are like in a rush to make money and to get things now. And then you have someone else that's more patient. The person that's more patient, let's say he's getting 50 cents an hour. And then the other person that's getting all the attention from women, that's getting the nice cars, clothes, and all of these other things, these menial things, they're getting that fast dollar. In the long run, that person might die, might see jail time. And that person that's making that 50 cents will just pass that person in the long run. So he just got me to think about things in the long run and not just thinking about right now. And the challenge for youth too often is they don't really think long term, they think now, you know? And in 2021, there's just too many opportunities, too much things that we can do with that type of mindset to take those type of risks. You follow me? With that type of entrepreneurial spirit, we have just too much in the Black community, especially when it comes to young Black boys. We have all of this adrenaline, all of this tenacity, all of this strength that we apply in the wrong areas. So my goal is to kind of like get them to take that energy, that boldness, that, you know, wanting to take up a challenge and that vigor and that like, ride or die attitude, but use that towards bettering yourself and the community.
It's so important what you're saying, because as a youth, as you say, they're not planning anything. It's just everything is almost reaction all the time. And it's in the sense of, I'm trying to impress others. I want to prove that I'm good enough, strong enough, tall enough, more dangerous than anybody else. So nobody can hurt me in some ways. And what they end up doing is actually creating, as you say, their own demise, because they are not realizing that this comes with a certain weight, a certain perception that gets them into further challenges. You have created a youth program called Broken Crayons Still Color.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about us?
Well, so when it comes to that quote, one day I remember just surfing Facebook and a friend of mine posted that quote. And when I saw the quote, it hit me like in a different way. You know, you'll see this quote reused all the time, like everywhere, but the way that it hit me, I just got so much revelation on that one quote that I was able to build a program just off that one quote. So to explain it to you, it's like a crayon. When you have a crayon, the crayon reminds me of Paula when she was like 1 year old. You know, when you have like that sweet name that your parent calls you, right? You feel like your identity, your value, your self-worth is so protected with your parents, right? But then they put you in something like daycare or elementary school. So the label that's on that crayon, that sweet name, that wonderful identity that can do no wrong, is lifted off, because now people call you fat, they call you short, they call you ugly, they call you this, they call you that. So that label now is different because you have a chorus of people telling you what they think about you. And it's basically their negative perceptions. They're just passing them on to you. And then life happens along the way and you get broken. So now you have no sense of identity. You feel broken, so you feel like you have no purpose. So how do you, at 15 now, decide what are you going to do with your life? You feel broken and you feel like you don't even know what I'm supposed to color, because am I tropical green or am I forest green? You follow me? So like all this to say, my whole message is getting youth to understand what the ego is. Getting them to understand that if you're looking for your value, if you're looking for value from what you have, what you do, and what people think about you, you are doomed. You follow me? You are doomed to being the victim of what people think. And a lot of people at 47, 57, 77 are still living out of their ego. You follow me?
Powerful.
Yeah.
It's powerful. For me, it's all those elements where I am the person I'm going to spend the most time with, period. If I don't get to know myself and keep trying to be someone else according to other people's standards, it's just, as you say, for me, I haven't just lost my label. I kind of lost me in the process.
Exactly.
And I'm still looking for Okay. So it's other people that give me meaning. And if that meaning is not bringing me, how could I say, that sense of accomplishment, that sense of worth, then it makes me feel even worse.
Right.
The analogy to me is whew, enormous. And when we're looking at the portion you say broken color, broken crayons, still color, is the sense that for me, what I'm hearing, even if our life has broken me, my situations have created maybe a sense of, oh, I'm not as strong, I'm not as beautiful, I'm not as intelligent. Those are just little labels that people are using to pull parts of you away. But regardless, even if the crayon is broken, and trust me, as a mother who has had crayons left in her car and melt in the sun, they still color. They do. And it's this part where you can always start wherever you are to rebuild who you are, but you have to go back in, not just expect from the outside.
There's a very amazing person that I know who's she's a powerful mother, powerful poet, community person, entrepreneur. And, she wrote a poem. Her name is Ashley Thompson. And you know what she says? She says that I may be broken, but I shattered beautifully.
Oh, I like that. Okay. I have to write it down. I'm sorry. I may be broken,
but I shattered beautifully.
It says it all.
Exactly. Yeah.
And oftentimes we keep wounds from the past, scars from the past, and we can't see the beauty that has emerged. It's like I know in Japan they have this art form where when a vase is broken, they put it together and they put gold where where it was broken, and then it creates something new that is stronger, but also that is so much more beautiful. So that statement just says too many things for me. Yeah, it's all about how I see myself. And when we're thinking youth, oftentimes there's more trust in what other people see than what I see. So if you've heard too many things, too many negative discourse, too much downplaying you, it's hard to go back. So what do you do? How do you help those kids?
Well, I do many different things. It all depends. Like on my end, I design different programs. I work with several different organizations. So, for example, one organization I work with is WIPCA. So with them, we're working on a mentorship program. I work with schools on a personal level. We'll do rap therapy. We'll do the Broken Crayon Still Color program. But essentially what I do in a nutshell is get them to be transparent after I'm transparent with them, get them to express themselves, give them a safe space to talk about what's going on in their lives, and get them to find meaning and purpose. One of the things that I'm really intrigued by, other than NLP, is logotherapy. You follow me? And logotherapy is very, very simple. It's to get people to focus on meaning, because regardless of whatever someone is going through, if they could find meaning in it, they won't stay in the neutral. We can get them to put themselves in drive and they could look forward. But if someone finds no meaning in life, it's easy to be depressed. Yeah. And even with all the medication that you can give someone if they're depressed, if they don't have any meaning and you just give them meds, what happens after the meds fade off?
Not a lot of people know about this, but I'm a pharmacist. And a lot of the meds we give, not to say that they don't have value, they only treat the symptoms. They
Not
don't treat the problem. So if you only take the meds, you're never going to get out of whatever challenge that got you there because you haven't addressed that me piece that you're referring to. That needs to, okay, this has happened for a reason. What are we going to do with it?
Exactly.
Am I just going to lie down and wait for, I don't know, someone to save me or for death to take me away? Or am I going to do something? So I do agree with you. Meaning is huge. You'll have to be able to find, even in those harder moments, harder trails in your journey, try and see, I don't understand, but what is there for me to learn here?
Exactly.
And propel me forward. Because otherwise, it feels like it was useless because there are things that happen to us, regular day life. And it's just like, really? Really? And you might never really find out what the purpose was, if there was. Somebody was drunk, I got hit, and I'm the one suffering from. And it changed my life completely. So it's difficult. It's hard to deal with those things if I can't find the meaning to, as you say, spring forward.
And I'll give a cheat code to purpose. There's purpose in pain, and the purpose of pain is service.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Any pain that you go through is to help someone else not go through that pain, at least, at the very minimum.
Yeah. See, I'm writing down still because it's just like, oh, little gems to me, little gems. And those are small little things. But if we stop to think about it, you realize that we tend to think that whatever happens to us, whatever happens to us. But the reality is that it happens for us.
Yes.
It happens for you to figure out my next step, for you to figure out what your purpose is, for you to figure out maybe this environment is not the right one for me. And it's all of those elements. And every now and then we just get bogged down in the routine, day to day, day in, day out, day in, day out. And I no longer think about that, but I can be miserable inside. So I figured if we can help the kids not get into that way of thinking, then you can find some of that service coming back into the communities. Because pain, as you say, is never in vain. It's never in vain. There's something that is meant to emerge from it.
So you're not just dealing medicine, huh? You dropping some gems too, huh?
Oh, I don't know. You know what? I am all about being of service to others. And again, that comes from a journey called life, but also from that sense that if you struggle with something, maybe that struggle could be useful to someone else. Exactly. And it's this part where you're talking about telling your story will open eyes and maybe have them start thinking about something longer than just what are they going to say tomorrow at school. And that's huge because otherwise there's decisions we make in our teen years and sometimes adulthood where you don't think. With my kids, there was always that thing called action consequence. So if there's an action, there's always a consequence. Even if it's not what you had anticipated, there's a consequence. And what do we do with the consequence? We have to deal with it.
That's it.
You can't just pretend and go under the cover and it's going to disappear. You have to deal with it. And for kids to learn that earlier in their journey will make it a little easier in their journey as well. What is the hardest lesson you have learned both as a Black man and as an entrepreneur?
Wow. Hardest lesson that I've learned as a Black man and as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur and a Black man at the same time, I feel like the hardest lesson is basically, I don't know how to phrase it. I'm trying to phrase it, but for me, it's basically your truth is the truth. And what do I mean by that is like, if you walk around with this weight, if you walk around with the weight of a thought, for example, if you walk around with this weight, like, you know what, because I'm Black and because I'm an entrepreneur, I am perceived in this way.
Mm-hmm.
So automatically I'm going to get this and this response.
Mm-hmm.
And if you walk around with a negative mindset, you're going to only get negative results. So all this to say what I'm trying to say is that as an entrepreneur that is Black, I feel like regardless of systematic racism, regardless of white privilege, regardless of all of these other things, I feel like can't nothing stop me. Can't nothing stop me. Like, it may slow me down, but it's not going to stop me. That's how I see it. And I feel like the biggest threat is your mindset. If you have a negative mindset and you feel like you're being blocked by anything like that, well, your mind is running on a minimum level. I still feel like these are issues that need to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like these things need to be dismantled. I still believe that they will stop some people and they shouldn't be there at all. But as an entrepreneur, I feel like I can't see anything that's going to stop me.
That's a great way of looking at life. And we all have to learn this at a point in our journey. For me, it's realizing that the stories we are telling ourselves will determine what we're able to accomplish.
100%.
So if you keep repeating the same thing to yourself, guess what? You're going to leave that reality. I can't. Guess what? You can't.
Exactly.
If you go, I can, even if I fall, I'll have to figure out how to do it because I've seen other people do it. Let me keep trying. I'll go do research. I'll go practice. I do whatever. But it's that mentality, which is, what am I telling myself? And am I aware of those negative thoughts?
And you see, you just made me think about something. With all of the systemic racism in Canada, in Quebec, in Ontario, just in Canada, in North America, in the world, period, right? The worst thing that you can do is oppress your own self in your own mind. When you already have systems in place that are set up to block you, but you're blocking yourself internally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not even focusing on like your circle of influence.
Yeah.
What you can do is sabotage yourself before you go ahead and complain about a system that, you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is when you operate in fear, what ends up happening is that you're constantly in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
In survival mode, you're thinking short term. I just want to get by. I just want to get to the next day. There's no forecasting in the longer perspective. So that keeps you put in or stuck on a spot and not able to move forward. Mm-hmm. You might look as though things are moving because, yeah, I'm paying the bills, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Mm-hmm. But personally, your soul is not lifted. Personally, you're not advancing. You're making movements, but you might be turning in circle. And
with no progress.
That's it. And then you wonder, how come, how come, how come? And again, always go back to, how am I thinking? What am I telling myself? It's paying attention to the person in the mirror and not just the people on the outside, because the bigger force is who is in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
What boundary have you implemented in your personal and professional life that has created the most personal growth or space for you?
The power of saying no. And you know what? My friend, I know my friend was on your show at one point, Rowan Higgins.
Yeah.
And she said something to me the other day that just blew my mind. Mm-hmm. You know what that is? No is a complete sentence. Just N-O is a complete sentence. No.
And you're saying this, and I totally agree. Mm-hmm. But it is at the same time so hard to live by it, because we've been raised, when you say no, someone is going to ask, but why? And as soon as you start explaining, then it's this game of, I'm trying to get you back from your no so that you can do what it is that I want. And so sometimes not to let yourself get pulled into that conversation, mm-hmm. where they're going to get it, what it is that they want at your expense. So right. Every now and then you just have to say, this is it. We're done. No. Mm-hmm. And stay with it, stick with it, even if inside you're thinking, oh my God, what are they going to do next? Who are they going to talk to? What are they going to say about me? My philosophy on that, which sounds rude to some people will talk regardless of what you do. Good or bad, people will talk. Some people will talk about you just because they have nothing else to talk about, and they will make up stories. And some people would become your enemy just because you seem to be doing fine and they're not. So you have no control over what people will do. So your thing is to know what is my lane, and know when. Sorry, not interested. Nope.
That's it.
It's big. Don't know. It took me a long time to learn, and I'm still working on that. So I don't think we ever completely are done.
Life process.
Yes, definitely. What would be one key message you would want to leave with our listeners?
It's in a quote that I've actually written. Tears may bombard my cheeks, sweat may surge over my brows, blood may stain my fingertips, but as long as I believe in my why, I will find a how. And the message behind that is, if you believe in your why, purpose, regardless of the difficulties that you may come across, you will always find a way to do it. The problem is never how you're going to do it. The real issue is the question behind why you're doing it.
Wow. You know what? It is one of those moments where I almost feel like it, which is so not appropriate. I'm saying it, but it's not appropriate. Where you want to ask the person, how old are you? You seem awfully young to have already mastered this. Because as you say, there are people in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 70s that are still not there. And it's huge. And I'm thinking, if you're able to pass that on to the kids you're working with, you're saving them years of hurt, years of going through the mud and feeling as though nothing is moving.
And that's exactly the goal. Every time that I go to a school, juvenile detention center, university, whatever it is, for me, the whole idea is to get rid of my old self.
Yeah. And I've read somewhere that until you get rid of your old self, you cannot become who you're meant to be. And it's just, oh, you know, the old self is everything that is familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually what keeps us in, okay, don't do this, don't try this, don't even. Just because it's familiar, it feels safe, but it might not be that's where you need to be. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, how can people get in contact with you or hear about your future activities?
So you can go to svenstelemaque.com,
Okay.
or on any social media platform. You can just put at Svens_Telemaque, and you can find me like that.
Okay. So I'm going to wish you the best, it's not luck, the best success in talking to our youth and helping them be better equipped to face life. Because a lot of what we see is the sense that I might not have any control over life, but when I have the proper tools, as you say, that circle of influence changes the perspective and this perception that I can't do it. So thank you for the work that you do.
Well, thank you so much, Paula. It's really been a pleasure keeping it real with you.
So we'll see you next week. It has been a pleasure talking to Svens, and hope you took a few gems and some notes for you to reapply in your own journey. Have a great week.